Hello, Lego fans, and welcome into a brand new episode of the Brick Hour podcast. I am your host, JJ, otherwise known as Langster Builds. With me, as always, my wonderful co-host, Cam, otherwise known as Cameron Studios.
How you doing, everybody?
And with us today is a very special guest, straight from our local lug, again, is our good friend Doug, who is otherwise known as DOTU Bricks.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
For those who may not be familiar with you, Doug, if you'd like to say a quick something real quick about yourself.
Basically, I run a BrickLink store and a YouTube channel. Same name, DOTU Bricks. That's really the bulk of what I'm doing these days. It keeps me pretty busy. More the BrickLink store than the YouTube channel.
I was going to say the BrickLink store definitely keeps you very busy, and that's part of the reason why that is the reason you're here today, to talk about that later on. But first, we're going to do some quick, our usual "What are we building" segment. I'm going to pass that to Cam to let him start with that.
All right. So to start off, I got another one of the Lego Ideas bookshelf because I got a few other sets last week. It came the day after we had Pen and Ash on.
Yep.
So I finally got my Insider Rewards Batman
Yes, the
brickheads.
Batman.
I wanted to get the exclusive posters, plus I'm planning on building all 7 additional ones since I have the original Lego Batman movie one. So I was really excited to get this finally. Had to do it online. Almost ran out of my 60 days. I got the poinsettia just ahead of the holiday season. I
Like
really
that
like the
one.
look of this, and I plan on building it within the next couple weeks just to have on the kitchen table.
Mm-hmm.
And then to top it off, JJ is going to be pretty excited about this. Ugh. I got the cat. Not for what people would normally think. In a previous episode, I brought my bunny onto the show. I am going to recreate him using this cat because, as you've seen the episode he was on, he's pretty much the same color scheme. He's got the white feet, he's got
Mm-hmm.
like the white chest. He's pretty much a tuxedo rabbit. So what I'm hoping to do is take a big chunk of this and transform it into Stan.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll probably have to get a few more pieces, which I might have to talk to you, Doug. But I'm hoping to recreate. It's probably gonna be my most ambitious mock yet. Something realistic outside of my usual small little art projects. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
really excited to see what I can do with this.
So getting into
Oh,
what I did really quick. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was almost done. So I actually finally built Tron. I
Yes.
love this set. I miss small idea sets. I know we've talked
Yep.
about it before.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I opened it up. I'm like 2 bags and not a gift with purchase. It was a lot of fun, very small, but I feel like you get less is more with that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then to top it off, I found I'm almost complete on a collection. I got the black spaceman, but without the helmet.
Yes.
And then I finally got a blue spaceman that's not Benny from the Lego movie.
So that worked out pretty
So
well.
all I need now is a black helmet, which I'm hoping to find in the next few months, weeks, depending. And then hopefully we'll get more pieces so we can complete the Earth Blue Spaceman that we got the torso piece for.
Mm-hmm.
We have not gotten a helmet or the air tanks yet.
That'll be soon, I bet.
I'm hoping so.
So I picked up, well, not picked up, well, I guess did pick up, bought off of a friend of ours, the Scarecrow Harvest of Fear DC Comics set, mostly
Ooh.
to get this Batcopter because it's sick. As you can see, I've already started replacing the blue with yellow, so it'll match all of the other Bat vehicles in my Batcave.
Ooh.
The other thing I got that was very interesting that I know Cam has been itching for me to show because it showed up like literally 2 days before we recorded last week was the Venom CBW
Ah.
Mad Hatter custom figure based on Lego Batman 1. This helmet hat piece is resin 3D printed and was then hand painted by I forget the painter's name.
It's hand painted.
It is hand painted. Like
Ooh.
you can literally see like the numbers on the card and the hat are like all hand
Yeah.
painted. Fantastic figure. He's got a ton of other stuff in the pipeline that I am jazzed for. A lot of stuff is going to end up going in that Batman thing over there. So really excited for that. Doug, have you been building anything lately?
I've been building inventory in the Lego store.
Yes, true.
I when all is said and done tonight, we'll have uploaded about 7,500 parts today. So
Wow.
Wow.
it's taken a while to get to that point. Lots of slopes and a bunch of Technic axles and stuff like that
Yeah.
that I just needed to get through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we saw plenty of that last time we visited you.
Yes, we did.
So
So,
now,
yep, go ahead. Sorry, Cam.
I was gonna say, before we get into why Doug is here, a little bit of news. There are a
Mm-hmm.
couple new sets revealed, so let me go ahead and get the screen shared here so we can see what we got. So I'm gonna start us off with the Endurance.
Yes, this I'm hyped for, dude. I'm so excited for this.
I hadn't honestly had no idea what this ship was until you gave me kind of like the 411
Historical
about it,
background.
and it's a
So,
really cool ship.
so
Now,
effectively, the
yeah.
historical background for the Endurance is that it was a wooden ship that exploration vessel that sailed in 1915, um, not too long after the Titanic, and it sailed down into Antarctica because back then they really didn't have the technology for metal ships to sail down to that cold because they would just freeze up. So Ernest Shackleton was the captain. He chartered the vessel down as an exploration trip to Antarctica, where the vessel basically ran aground on accident.
Hmm.
And Shackleton, with his expert knowledge of the sea, was basically able to save the entire crew. There was not a soul lost on board. The boat did sink in the Antarctic, and I believe it was like 2017 or 2018.
Yeah.
Another exploration vessel who, from my understanding, was looking for penguins, um, basically came upon it underwater. And the really crazy thing is that like it's in perfect condition. Like it looks like it
Mhm.
sank yesterday. Like the gold plating on like the Endurance that's on the back of it and the starlets below it is perfectly intact. It the paint is even still on it. And it's because, yeah, like that right there. All of that is still present. The rudder like is still present. A lot of the metallics is still there because in the Antarctic Ocean, it's so freezing cold that the bacteria in the water is not existent. So unlike the Titanic, which is being eaten away by all these different things, this boat is not being touched by bacteria. So it's kind of wild how well preserved it was. But this model looks outstanding.
It does.
I
Now,
It
love
kind of leads me to wonder if they'll consider raising it at some point because I know with the Titanic, so many people perished. They don't want to do that. But if nobody perished, it's just a ship down there.
Yeah. I think it was more along the lines of like Shackleton kind of sacrificed the boat to save the crew. And I think
hmm
that's kind of why they don't want to raise it. But there was discussions of trying to raise it. I
hmm
think the problem is they can't really get the equipment there to raise it because of the cold.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I think also with the Titanic, it's just deteriorating at such a high rate that even if they tried bringing it up, I feel like it would just fall apart. Where I think the Endurance would have a better chance of coming up, but it's just a matter of being able to, but
that
also
boat's
if
got a
they
bunch
really
of
should.
that boat's got a bunch of bad juju attached to it now also. So I
What
wouldn't want
makes
to
you say
touch that.
that?
The submarine that was piloted by a PlayStation controller. Anyways, um,
There is a
yeah,
cool
I
gift with
love.
purchase with this as well.
Yes, let's talk about that real
Yes.
quick. So this is Shackleton, which is cool that he's included. I'm bummed he's not included with the actual boat
Mhm.
itself, but I do understand why he's in the gift with purchase. They did like Eiffel's apartment and things
Yep.
like that. You know,
Right.
Doug, we were talking to you before. You're a huge fan of these kind of where it's like based on actual people.
Yeah, I kind of like this mini collection of minifigures that are actual people, not like actors
Hmm.
playing a part, but actual people like
Mhm.
Shackleton and like Jane Goodall and Amelia Earhart, stuff like that. So
Right.
Yep,
definitely be one I pick up.
this is really cool. I also like that this thing isn't $600 like the Titanic is. I like that it's only 270 and it's a really good build. It
And you
looks
get
really good.
3,000 pieces.
Yeah, the
I gotta
value for this
say,
is off the charts.
I'm impressed with this set. I'm not gonna personally buy it just because ships aren't my first purchase
I
I want to
might at
get
some
to. I
point.
got plenty of other stuff I want to get, but
Mhm.
it's a really cool looking build and it looks very sleek. And the sails, I think they're
I think the
paper.
sales will be popular.
Yeah,
It's
sales are
definitely gonna be
very
popular.
popular. You're totally right.
All
And it
right.
looks
I
like there's
love this
9 of
thing.
them.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there is nine. Unless
Wow.
that back one is one big one. Yeah, there's nine.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, Overall detail on this, outstanding. The fact that the I don't know if the no the lifeboat that's included the lifeboat gift with purchase is not to scale.
Right.
I
Um,
believe it's 9, yeah.
then there's the flag.
The
Yeah,
flag.
the plaque is
Oh yeah, the
great.
flag.
And they
Yeah,
did the
This,
right
honestly.
thing with the plaque too. They put the plaque on the side
I
instead
like
of on the
that.
front like they did with the Concorde.
Hmm.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, the original was the Polaris. Yeah, this is all there. It looks really cool. I also think it's interesting with this line, like we got the Titanic. That's a very famous vessel that
Hmm.
perished at sea. The Endurance, while it perished at sea, the story around it, I mean, I think there was some backlash when the Titanic came out because it was like, oh, it's the Titanic and all these people died, and it's like, okay, I get that,
And
but
it was like the ship that would never sink.
yeah, but I think the Titanic, there's so much mythos around it. It was different.
Hmm.
This is unknown, and unlike the Titanic, nobody died on this boat.
Right.
The story of it's incredible. So I think this is cool. I would like to see Lego do more sets like this with more famous like watercraft. That would be really cool to see them do that. I don't know what you do after this, but
No.
I would never
Yeah,
have
of
guessed
course
the
it's going to be a hard line to thread because they're not going to do any military vehicles.
no,
So
like you wouldn't get the Arizona. You'd never
Mm-mm.
see that. You wouldn't see any like aircraft, like none of that stuff would ever happen. So it would have to be entirely like exploration vessels. Like I could see them doing like the Mayflower one day, but even then,
Oh,
like the Mayflower would be cool.
it
But
would
even
be cool.
the problem with that is it's kind of tied to like not
Yeah.
great historical stuff. So maybe you want to avoid it. But even
yeah.
then, it's interesting.
Hmm.
I like this is happening. I'm a fan of this set. It's really cool. The other big set that got revealed was the Love Art set, which this came out of nowhere. And I
Hmm.
was surprised when this got revealed. And we were talking a little bit before we started this, and it was kind of just like, we've seen this like a million times
Right.
elsewhere.
I mean,
Uh,
it looks it in one sense looks very simplistic, but on the other hand, it looks very complex at the same time. Like it's very simple design,
yeah.
but like putting the O on there and then like mixing the green with the red.
I also like the fact that this isn't like a half C build. Like if you go around, like it's fully detailed around the entire thing.
I mean, look at it.
Now this is not an ideas set, correct?
No, this is
Correct.
not. This is just a
Because I
set that they're
noticed
doing.
on the front of the box art there's a person's name, Robert Indiana.
I
I believe
believe
that the original designer
he's the artist.
Okay.
Because
or artist.
I swear to God, this is in a city somewhere as a statue.
Oh, it is.
I
It's
feel like
like a
it's
famous sculpture
isn't it in
and
like Chicago or something like that? Oh, it comes apart. That's interesting.
mhm.
Yeah, I like this. It's cool. Will I buy it? No. It's got a lot of good parts if you're looking for
Let's
as like a
see.
parts pack type
And
thing.
you know, with the topic, it's perfect timing. Release it at the beginning of January. You've got 6 weeks before Valentine's Day.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Genius release pattern there.
It was
And it's
Indiana.
also
It's in Indiana, JJ.
oh, it's probably in Indianapolis then.
So we'll probably
Um,
drive by it on our way to Brick World this year.
we might honestly. Um, I like this. It's only $80, so it's
Mhm.
not like if this was over 100, I'd have been like, wow, okay, that's a lot. 80 is not bad.
Mm-mm.
For 791 pieces, okay, cool. I like this. It's interesting.
It's
It's
a very
new. It's
sleek
different.
design
Yeah,
outside the back, but most people are going to display it from the front anyways.
Mhm.
It's meant to be a sculpture. It's not meant to be played with. It's not meant to be moved around. It's meant to just be a
correct.
display piece from home.
Yes. I like this. It's cool.
I
So
won't
that,
buy it, but it's a cool concept.
yeah.
I would like to see, because like for years, I'm sure plenty of Lego fans have taken famous sculptures and just made their
Oh yeah.
own replicas.
Million times.
So this could be a new type of theme of just real life sculptures.
Could be.
Mhm.
You could do a whole bunch of results. There's endless possibilities here.
Mhm.
Um, so that's the end of the news for the week. So now we're going to get into our big topic, which is BrickLink stores. A lot of us use them for mock building, for buying used old sets, for buying minifigures, all kinds of stuff. And Doug is he runs a BrickLink store.
Mhm.
Cam and I were lucky enough to be able to tour his BrickLink store last week. It was
That
really cool getting to
it
see
was
how that
really
operates
cool.
and all the stuff that he has and how it's organized is quite fascinating. So we're going to interview Doug, and so we can share the insight that he has on running a BrickLink store.
Sounds good.
Um, so the first question really there is what got you into wanting to be a BrickLink seller? Like, what got you into selling things on BrickLink and making your store?
Well, I've been a fan of Lego for more years than I care to count or quantify. Um, like my first set given to me, it has a 3-digit set number, so
Wow.
it's old. And I've gone through dark ages of differing lengths a couple of times, but basically it was probably early to mid 20 teens, and I started dabbling with the idea of it. And then it was later in the 20 teens where I'm like, I probably could do this. And I found a couple of good deals on new sets for really cheap prices. And I was like, so I bought a bunch. Never really got to that point of opening a store. There was other stuff going on, but I was just like, I could do this. And so that's kind of where it started.
Mhm.
Kind of snowballed from there. And it's like an avalanche now, but
So when did you like see yourself go from being a Lego fan only to kind of, I think I actually might want to make a BrickLink store and like start selling all these pieces that I have.
so there was brief inklings of the possibility of that probably back around like 2012 or 2014,
Okay.
but it wasn't until 2017 where I actually set out to buy stuff with the expressed intent to put it into a store. Before that, I'd bought some bulk Lego, thrift stores and that sort of thing, but it was just basically I sorted it into my own personal collection. It was just like, oh,
Mhm.
more pieces, great. But after that, that's kind of 2017 is probably where it started.
Wow.
So, how difficult is it really to get a store started? Because I feel like a lot of people think, oh, I can run a BrickLink store, but there is a lot that goes into it. It's not just like list the parts and whatever. Like, there's a lot that goes into it.
Um, the difficulty in actually starting the store is almost nil. You can go to
Hmm.
BrickLink and you can apply to have a store. It's a little different now than when I did it because I actually did it back in like 2014 or something like that, thinking
Mhm.
ahead. And I just didn't do anything with it for years. But I've heard now they actually request some photos of like, well, what are you selling? Like, let's
Mhm.
actually see what you've got. So there's a little bit more going on, but I mean, I've heard people say like, "Oh, I'm going to be parting out these sets," and they just take a picture of like their dining room table with like 5 sets in a quantity of 5 or something each, and that's good enough. Uh, so there is a little bit more, but essentially getting started is easy. But it's once you decide to do that, before you open the store, there's a lot of stuff you have to take into consideration, like how are you going to ship the stuff?
Mhm.
What conditions are you going to use? How are you going to organize it so that when somebody does order from you, you can find it quickly? That's one of the larger problems that I keep hearing from sellers over and over again is they make mistakes and they have to fix them. I mean, and it's sometimes it's simple as like, you start with like a couple of drawer units, there's 64 drawers a piece, you just number them, you got 128 drawers, but then like after a while you get this many drawer units, do you have like 7,000 numbers?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
then it's like you also have to be careful of like the way BrickLink sorts numbers is drawer 1 is just before drawer 11.
Hmm.
So it's like 1, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 2, 20, 21. So you have to pad zeros into your low numbers
Oh.
because it's just weird. It's just the way it works. And you have to bear in mind BrickLink started originally it was called BrickBay
Mhm.
back in like 98 or 99.
Wow.
And the architecture behind it hasn't changed really.
Hmm.
So we're dealing with 25-year-old architecture running this site. And that's one of the largest problems that Lego is facing. Like, from what I understand, when they bought BrickLink, because they did
Mhm.
that 3, 4 years ago now,
Mhm.
um,
Around there, yeah.
it, they were basically, they wanted to modernize it. And they kind of tried a little bit, then they realized we can't at the moment because we have to basically totally redesign everything from the ground up
Hmm.
because this old architecture won't do what we want it to do.
Yep.
Right.
And so there's a lot of stuff that I'm assuming they're still working on that. You
I
don't
feel
really hear
like
a lot about it, but
I've heard recently that they've been doing small beta tests just to try and modernize it a little bit. I know it's only gone to a few people. Actually, a friend of mine actually saw it and like sent screenshots of giving us a little sneak peek of what they're seeing. So it's pretty interesting to see how far BrickLink has somewhat come.
yeah,
I remember thinking Lego would never essentially want to associate with BrickLink essentially because it was like a competitor at first. But
yeah.
then by them buying it, it's sort of getting rid of the competition, but also it's another way to reach fans.
Yeah, the big thing, a lot of people, the consensus is they bought it for the data.
Yeah,
What are people
honestly.
buying? What do they want? Oh, look, these colors and these parts are really popular. We should make more of the stuff that have these parts.
I never thought of
These
that.
parts are really expensive. Like, do we want them to be expensive? Maybe not. Let's start including more of these parts in sets. So there's nothing substantiating that, but you would be completely ignorant to think that they are not looking at that data at
Mhm.
some level.
Exactly. Do you think there was any sort do you feel there was any sort of impact on Lego purchasing the platform on your store in the end?
No, because my store did not start until after they had purchased it.
Oh,
Okay.
I was not up and running. So I mean, I started adding parts to the store in summer of 22.
oh,
Okay.
And so, yeah, they had already purchased it at that point. Um, but yeah, it had no effect on me personally.
Because I know
for that.
the only thing that they removed in terms of like stuff that wasn't selling on it,
Oh,
like Brick Arms was taken off entirely, like
Correct.
Brick Arms, and there was I think Citizen Brick had stuff on there also.
it's
Yeah.
pretty much just customs at that point,
Yeah,
right?
custom
All that
stuff
got
was
pulled.
eliminated. They've also eliminated the ability to add new certain items. There's actually, and I don't know if they were employee gifts or not, but they're like lighters and like
Hmm.
packs of matches and stuff like that that had the Lego logo on them. And you can find those listings still on BrickLink, but you can't add a listing. It's sort of like because there's
Oh,
items that are sometimes listed for deletion, and it will be deleted as soon as there are none available. So as long as
okay.
somebody still had it in their store and it hadn't been bought, it'll remain. And then as soon as that one or more, however they had, many they had, or how many sellers had it, as soon as it's gone, then the item gets deleted.
Huh.
So it's a long process, or it
Interesting.
can be.
That makes me think of one of probably my more obscure pieces of my Lego collection is I have a Lego wine bottle opener
Hmm.
and can opener. And I've always thought that that was cool, but that's probably an item that they probably don't want to be
Yeah, I
associated
don't
with
know. I mean,
anymore.
you could try looking it up. I mean, I really don't know if it's still there or not. I've never even
I
seen
bought it
something.
off BrickLink probably a year or two ago.
Then it's probably safe.
Huh.
I don't know. Is it one item that does both?
It's there's a corkscrew and then there's a bottle opener. There's two separate
Two
pieces. It's
separate
like
pieces,
it's
like
just
in a gift
essentially
pack.
an orange 2x8 brick with a corkscrew coming out of the bottom of it.
Okay, that's kind of neat.
That's kind of cool actually.
Yeah.
Maybe a
So
future episode.
so
Obscure Lego.
There you
how do
go.
you yeah, right. So how do you normally go about acquiring parts for your store? I mean, you mentioned that being buying bulk, buying sets, like what do you find is the easiest way to go about acquiring parts for your store?
Well, it's hard to quantify easy necessarily. The biggest entry point is going to be your price
Hmm.
Hmm.
for anybody, unless you just have limitless money. So the cheapest way, if somebody was looking at that, is probably to invest in a used bulk lot, either from a local Goodwill or other store, thrift store,
Hmm.
maybe a garage sale. Somebody personally, your own collection would be free. If you just convert that to a store. But that's is usually going to be your cheaper purchase route,
Hmm.
um, because there is more work involved with used, but the profit margins are usually higher because your purchase price is so much lower. Now
Hmm.
you
Right.
can do really well with getting clearance sets like at Walmart or Target or wherever around those times a year where they do clearance and then parting them out. There is some limitation to that because if you buy three different sets and they're all medium-sized sets, you might have 800 or 900 different pieces in like maybe 1,500 to 2,000 pieces total in one set of each of those three sets, let's say, and you
Hmm.
buy five each, and so you multiply all that by five, but your number of different pieces doesn't change. You just have more of them.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And so your selection, your breadth of inventory isn't necessarily as large as if you just buy like a 10 or 20 pound bulk lot of Lego, because that's probably some kids like, collection over 6 years, and it's probably the 37 sets and there's no duplicates. There's going to be duplicate pieces from different
Right.
sets, but you're going to have more breadth of inventory.
Hmm.
Definitely. So, like, do you find yourself purchasing more lots from like Goodwill or donation centers or from like clearance at stores?
Right now, I'm trying not to buy anything. I have a lot. I have more than I probably can get through feasibly, just period.
Mhm.
But when I was buying stuff, I was trying to do an equal number of both,
Okay.
because there is something to be said. There are some buyers who only buy new. They don't want to worry about the condition. There's some sellers who will then buy used, and then they're eliminating that certain market share. They're not getting anybody who limits themselves to new only. Obviously older pieces, you have to get, used parts, generally speaking, unless there are people out there that have new parts that are old. They're just usually pretty expensive because they're still new.
So, like, why don't you go through what like a typical day is for you in your store, like in the past couple of weeks? Like, what's just your standard day?
Well, when I come down here first into the basement, the first thing I do is assess the orders that have come in, and I try to get those picked, packed, and ready to go. My local post office closes at 5. The one in Henrietta is actually open till 7. So if I run a little late, I can always go out there. It's not too much further for me. But I generally 5 is my cutoff for getting to the post office, and it's only about 10, 12 minutes away. So if I can get an order in and packed, like I had one come in today at 4 minutes after 4, and it went out today because it was like 3 items. So I was like, it was done by like 4:30, just out the door.
Right.
And then after that, I get back and I try to process more used. And that's like, am I doing what I call an A sort, which is you're just taking random loose pieces and sorting it into general categories. Then there's what I call a B sort, which is like you take a large category like modified plate, which there's a zillion different modified plates, and you break that down into like maybe 6 categories of that. And then there's C sort or mold sort, where you take a particular type of piece, like one of those subcategories of modified plate or 2x brick, which there's not that many of, but it still needs to be done. And then you sort it by mold, like, okay, 2x brick, 2x2, 2x3, 2x4, and all the different versions up to, I think, 2x12 or maybe, 2x12, I think is the longest. Maybe it's 2x10. I lost track. And then once they're done sorted by mold, then I take each one at a time, sort it by color. And then I usually set them up on my desk here, alphabetical by color name. So black is on the left and yellow is on the right, and everything else is in the middle between. And then once they're done by color, I take each color and I do what my quality control. I look at each piece. Is it something I would sell? Now, if I'm sorting at any stage, A, B, or C before that, and I run into something like, oh, there's bite marks, it gets pulled immediately. I don't wait for that last step. If I see it, pull it, because then that's less work I have to do at every further step. But I do look at every part to see, is it sellable or not? And there are certain things, certain parts that I look at more closely and I'm more tense about. Tiles, I'm very tense about because people want the tile for its flat surface. Right. And that's usually tends to get scratched the easiest. So I'm more tense about that. Bricks, I generally like if one side has a mark that's not too egregious on it, I'll still accept it because you just turn it around and the other side shows and it's fine. So that's kind of how I go with that. And I usually colors that don't exist anymore, like the original dark gray, just any color that's just old and doesn't exist. I'm a little more lenient with what I'll accept because
reddish brown.
No new ones, they're gone.
Yeah, reddish brown's got to be a nightmare when those parts show up.
Reddish brown, it's difficult, but I find the biggest problem with reddish brown is I have to always double check. Oh, does this piece also exist in brown? Because there's actually a color called brown, which is a predecessor of reddish brown, and they are very similar. It's almost as hard for me to tell apart as light gray and light bluish gray, which are just the worst for me.
They are it's wild how similar they are. The fact
the thing with both light gray, light bluish gray, and then dark gray and dark bluish gray is, and they changed them in 2004. There is a transitory color where both of those colors shifted from their old light and dark versions to the bluish versions, but it didn't quite get to where they wanted to be. So they changed it again, technically. And so there's a transitory color that's not quite the bluish gray, and it's not quite the light or dark gray. And then light gray fades over time, dark gray fades over time. So you've got original colors, faded original colors, transitory colors, new colors. It's horrible.
It's like every possible combination there could be.
It's not fun. It's not fun.
What would you say is like the most tedious part of owning a BrickLink store?
For me, it's some of the mold variants. Like a 1x1 clip, 1x1 plate with a clip on coming off of it. The sideways clip that's in the same plane as the tile, not the one that's a vertical clip.
Yeah.
So there's like 4 versions of that. And you really have to get down into the weeds and look at it like, which is this? It gets to the point where I have a 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with pictures of all 4 of them blown up on it that I then will take and I will set down an example of each one if I have it. And then as I'm going through, I'm like, okay, I'm looking for this. I'm not sure what, and then I'll compare because it's just, and one of them is only available for like 4 years in the 80s. So it's pretty rare at this point, but they all have some functional difference. So there's that.
Okay.
There's certain other mold variants that I don't track. I really try to go with BrickLink on that, but then they merged a lot of molds earlier this year, which really was, in my opinion, a bad move. The parts that where there's like this and then another part that goes in and then there's like a friction type thing and it like has like different places it stops at.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's a 7-tooth and a 9-tooth version, and they are merged now in BrickLink.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're trying to recreate an old set, first of all, you don't really know which one was in that set because the listing is now merged. But I try to now list. I'll count them. I'll get in there and I'll count, how many notches are on it. And you can kind of tell if you have one of each, you can kind of tell there's basically an extra couple of notches in a spot that the other one doesn't have. So once you learn that, it's a little bit better, but I kind of have to relearn it each time I go through that category because I've gone through like 8, 12 different categories since then. I'm like, now what is exactly the difference? And some of the differences are not important. Like the headlight brick, that's got the little hole underneath it on some of them and some of them don't. It doesn't make a difference. So I don't pay attention to that. But then there's like the treads, the tractor treads, the larger ones. There is a mold variant where there's more reinforcement on it than on the other one. And I do separate those. It's hard to know exactly where the right point is. Like there's actually an undetermined type for a lot of these on BrickLink. So you'll look and there's like, here's this version, here's that version, and there's undetermined, that's for the BrickLink sellers who aren't actually taking the time to check it all. They just put all variants in one listing, and it's just kind of like, if it doesn't matter to you as a buyer, you can buy them. I don't know how often people are actually buying those because I'm not even using them. So
yeah, I always get scared of the not applicable category because to me it feels like people are just filing what they don't know is there under it. So I avoid that as much as possible.
Yeah.
When you get an order, what's your process for picking it? How do you go about starting to pick your order? How long does it usually take depending on the size of the order?
Yeah. It depends also on how many orders I have. I have a cart that I set up and it has 3 shelves. And so I can easily pick 3 orders at once. Probably going to modify that system at some point soon, but right now 3 orders at once. And the way I've set up you can see the drawers back here. Now this is just one side of my drawers. I've got another unit behind that. And then behind that is the wall. And I run the cart down the aisle, and the way I've labeled them is one side is, let's say, has the column AB, and the other side has column AC, then AD and AE. So when it orders them, so I just go down the aisle once. And there's a program I use called Brick Freedom, which will take all the orders that I have currently, amalgam them into one pick order. And so it says, okay, here, this is from AB, it's for order A. This one's from AC, it's from order C. This one's from AD, it's from order B. And as long as I'm careful about where I put stuff away, I can get all that done in one pass.
Wow.
So I haven't really timed myself for numbers of parts or lots, but large orders, I've had some take me a full hour to pull one order.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, this is an order with like, 200 lots, 600 pieces. It's just like a lot of different stuff going on. Or I can get an order with, 3 different parts. They want one of each and it's done in 3 minutes. I don't even take the cart. I'll just go with my phone and pull it off the phone and put it into a cup or something.
Okay. So I guess probably with building a store with filling it up with pieces, do you find it's easier to sort just a bulk bag of parts or just specific sets? Like if you have like 5 of one set, which do you find easier to sort?
It is completely easier to part out a set. Another program I use called Brick Store allows you to pull in the inventory of any set that's been inventoried. So a brand new set won't be in yet, but any older set pretty much is. You can tell it how many you're doing, and you can actually change the condition to use. So if you bought used sets, I can actually part them out in that program as used. But
Oh.
for the sake of argument for the new, so I tell it I have 10 of this set, and it just creates a file with all the parts from 10 copies of that set. I can order that by color of the part, type of part, all sorts of different things like that. And then it's just a matter of opening up the bags and sorting the pieces. I generally will sort the bags by bag number and then open up all of bag one at once. If there's a sub bag, it gets put aside to get done after I'm done with the main bag. And then I just sort by parts. And again, I'm putting them in alphabetical order by color. And I use lots of these cups, these little cups. These are like a workhorse in my store. I keep buying more of them. They're at Target. I'm not endorsed by Target, but you can get 4 of these for $2 at Target.
Wow.
And then if you pay attention for a sale, which I just did, they had a sale last week. They were 30% off. So I paid $1.40 for 4 of them. And I use so many of these. I probably have 200 of them at this point.
Wow.
So
I got a bunch that are really there. I got a bunch that are really helpful. Yeah. So you talk about Brick Store, and was it Brick Finder was the other one?
Brick Freedom is
Brick
what
Freedom.
I pull orders with. And
Yes.
Brick Store is what I create files to upload to BrickLink.
So BrickLink, would you say that both of those platforms have helped organizing your store way more than it would be just not using them?
Absolutely. Or at the very least, they've made the work of running the store easier and more efficient.
Okay.
I mean, neither one of those programs really has anything to do with the way I've organized the drawers. But because I've organized the drawers to be flip-flopping sides of an aisle, I can use Brick Freedom to go down that aisle once instead of going down one side of the aisle and then going and turning and going back down the other side of the aisle to pick the drawers on the other side. I go down once.
That's got to be night and day incredible for helping things out.
It's a weird thing. So like the way I'm set up, I do my packing of my orders here, but my sticker printer is way over there. And I timed it. It takes me 30 seconds to go, and once I printed the sticker, to walk over there, pull it off the printer, and walk it back. If I get 10 orders a week, that's 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like, some days I'll get 6, 7 orders. So that's 3 minutes a day. So I mean, it's not much at once, but my plan is to get a shipping station set up so that the sticker printer is right there at the same place I'm packing the orders, and I'll save all that time. So there is a lot to be said about small increments of saving time. It does add up.
It really does. So minifigures are obviously a very big part of BrickLink. A lot of people go there for bulk buying and whatnot. How do you find is the easiest way to sort minifigures in the end? Do you prefer to sort them like split them apart into individual elements, or just selling them as full completed figures?
When I part out a set, I look at the value of the whole minifigure at the time I'm doing it, but then I also look at the value of all the parts as a sum. And it also will depend on how many I'm parting out. Like if I'm parting out 10 copies of a set, I might actually decide to say, well, I'll sell 4 of them as whole minifigures and part 6 of them out. If I'm only doing like 5 copies, I'm generally going to do one or the other to all of them. Something to be said about parting out more copies of a set. If you part out 1 copy of a set, that's fine. Even something that is large like the UCS AT-AT, there's probably going to be parts in that set where there's only 1 of.
Right.
So any size set is going to have that. So if I part out that set, sure, great. There's 8,000 pieces or whatever. But now I've got a drawer somewhere with a new part. Unless I already had it, it's got 1 part in the drawer or in half the drawer, perhaps. So parting out more copies of a set increases your minimum number of parts per part. So like if I part out 20 of something, I know I have at least 20 of every part, because if there was 1 in one set, there's 1 in all of them, and that's 20.
Yep.
So that's, you don't want to waste drawer space doing that. Now I have another solution for wasted drawer space. I have onesie twosie drawers for new parts. So once a part sells down to having only 1 or 2 left, it goes to my onesie twosie drawers. So I do have to like sift through those and to find parts, but generally all my parts are consolidated. So what that means is when I'm putting parts away, if I'm putting away a part that already exists in the store, it goes with the parts that were already in my store, as opposed to just putting them in another drawer somewhere.
Wow. So I know, like you mentioned, like you have like obviously your wall of pieces, like your 3 different walls, and like you're looking to make a shipping station.
Yep.
What's like your next, I guess, milestone looking to get towards of your BrickLink store?
I kind of wouldn't mind hitting 1 million pieces. That'd be kind of nice. But a simpler one, which has no real value, that I've been chasing now for 2 years, is getting at least 1 order every day of a month. I've never gone a month and actually received an order every day.
Okay.
Now that could be lame because you could get an order every day, and if it's like a $5 order, you're not doing too well. And you could get one order in 1 month, and it'd be the only order you get, and it could be like $100 order, and that's better than getting one order a day at $5. But it's just this little random thing that I would like to be able to say I've gotten one order every day. November, I'm still there, so I still have a shot at it.
Okay.
Thanksgiving is coming, which
Oh,
always worries me. Although I remember last year I got an order on Christmas, so
really?
it can happen. Yeah.
People need parts, Cam. You never know.
I mean, you're not
Well,
wrong.
there are certainly people that don't celebrate Christmas for various reasons.
True.
Then there's that.
So,
There's all that.
I think a very important question that a lot of people probably would like to know is what goes into pricing various parts and minifigures? Like what factors go in? What factors do you use when you upload parts to your store and price them out?
that's a great question. So, and this let me step back because there's another aspect of this is if you have a wanted list with 100 parts on it, and you go and you say, okay, I want to buy these parts. One of the things you're going to look for is what store can you get all of the parts at?
Yep.
And you've probably never found a store to get a lot of parts at with one store. I mean, if you're only looking for 3 parts, you'll probably find a bunch of stores that have all 3 of those. But once you get more and more and more parts, the likelihood you're going to find one store that has all of them gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
What you want to do is you want to find the store that has the most parts. Like, oh, this store has 90 of the parts I need out of 100, or 92 or 88 or whatever it is. So that store becomes high on your list of buying from. And so that's where breadth of inventory is important. I want to get to that breadth of inventory to be able to sell as much as I can. And because of that, if somebody buys from me, they might be willing to pay a little bit higher per piece if they only have to buy from me and let's say 1 or 2 other people, because now they are getting 3 shipping fees, let's say, if they have to order it from 3 stores.
Right.
If they're looking at pricing of parts, they might save money on parts, but if you're saving 3 cents here and 5 cents there and 2 cents there, and now you're paying 6 shipping fees, is it really a savings?
Right.
It may not be. And
It's
some
like
stores,
convenience.
well, it's not even just convenience, it is saving money. Because if you can get 90 parts from one seller and the next best after that is 40 parts, and that's going to make you have to order from 3 extra stores, you now have 4 or 5 shipping fees instead of 2 or 3. And where most shipping fees are probably at least $5 or $6 a piece,
right?
You could be saving $18.
It
so
adds up.
yeah, maybe you spent $3 more in parts at the one store, but you're saving a ton of money otherwise. And there's stores like me who will offer free shipping at a certain threshold. You spend so much, you get free shipping. And some stores don't do that, but they'll say, well, if you spend over this amount, you'll get a reduction in shipping charge. Like you get $10 off, but you pay the rest, something like that.
Right.
So that's another factor to keep in mind. So when I'm pricing parts, generally all parts, I price at the prior 6-month average, and then I add a percentage to that.
Okay.
Because I want to command a higher price. I mean, my store is at about 775,000 pieces right now. I'm hoping to be 780 by the end of the night. We'll see. And so I think that's large enough to be able to command a little bit more than the average price. And if you look, most of the time, the current average is higher than the sold average because people generally gravitate towards the cheaper parts. So over time, even your 6-month average is going to go up because if you look at a part, especially if it's an older part, you've got so many available. And so, yeah, there's going to be more that are going to be listed as people find more or whatever. But you take the parts that are listed and it's like people buy the cheap ones. If people still want them, they have to buy what is now the cheap ones, which are more expensive than the previous cheap ones. And if more people want them, though, they still have to buy and they have to buy them at the cheap price, which is probably more expensive than the previous cheap ones. So, I mean, the price will start to ramp up over time. It's a slow process. And when I say cheap and expensive, it's like, few cents perhaps on some pieces. It's just a very slow rise. Contrary to that, when people part out sets from clearance, there is what a lot of people call the race to the bottom. And what that is like everybody and their brother who runs a BrickLink store can get a hold of the same clearance you can. They walk into Walmart. Walmart puts the same sets on clearance at all the stores, mostly the same prices, some better at some stores. And then, so there's usually a glut of those pieces right when they're clearanced. And so people are trying to get sales. So they upload the parts, they list it as 6-month average. They're not getting sales, so they lower the prices. And so there's this cyclical race to the bottom. And that also happens with brand new sets when there's new colors in parts or new parts. You know, they get listed and it's like, oh, it's a brand new shiny thing. It's like, well, I'm going to charge 80 cents for that part. And then somebody else comes out, well, that's a cool part, but I'm only going to charge 77 cents for that. And so there's that race to the bottom. So
Right.
there's that going on. Now, I do charge a different scheme for Star Wars minifigures. I charge a little bit more than that, than those numbers for those because they tend to sell quickly. I know some people who also charge premium for certain colors of parts because they're very popular. Another thing Brick Freedom does is it shows me what colors of parts are my most popular sellers.
Oh.
So like at the end of a month, I can look at the report that says, oh, well, this month you sold, you know, the most in, you know, reddish brown or green or whatever the color might be. And so some people will charge more for that. And it hurts some buyers because Star Wars mocks use lots of grays. Castle mocks use lots of grays. They compete against each other. Prices of gray parts are generally higher than most other parts. And that's both your dark and light versions because people use both.
Right.
And anybody who's doing rock work, grays, you know, it's very
I don't know anybody who does that.
So yeah, those parts can go up pretty quickly in price. But then there's other colors like, you know, dark pink, not a very popular color. And then there's other colors that I think probably should be more popular. It's just they don't make as many of them.
Right.
It's a whole other topic, which I think that, you know, like there's the new reddish orange, really sharp color. But if they don't use it enough, it's going to have the same fate as that neon yellow. And it's just not going to do well.
It's
I think it's a better color than
we
neon.
talked about that neon when we came in and took a tour. It's a cool color, but I don't know how like practical it can be to be used outside of like a specific, like for this case, neon yellow is used mostly for like ambulance or like medical.
Yep. And I think I'm not positive, but I do think the neon yellow might fluoresce under black light, which might give it a little bit more life because there's people out there that actually design builds based on black light.
And they're cool too when you see them.
Yes, they are. Yes,
they're really cool.
All right, here's a fun one. What was the largest order you've received as well as the smallest?
Well, I have a minimum purchase of 250 in my store.
Oh.
And I have seen people hit like 250, 251. But then with shipping and if they have to pay tax where they are, generally the smallest I get is like $9.75 to $10. They really have to try to get it under $10. Or if they live in a state without tax, and that's pretty easy. Or if they're tax exempt. Because that's a new thing BrickLink did. If you have a store or if you're reselling it, you can actually buy tax exempt on BrickLink now. It's a nice little feature.
Oh, that's interesting.
So like not like money wise, I meant like part wise, like the largest
part. One item. I've had many one item orders. However, oftentimes they're more expensive or they're larger. Minifigure orders too. A lot of times I will get one for an order. The largest part count order I think was 17,000. 17,001. Oh. They bought 17,000 dark brown 1x1 round tiles. Wow. Or was it? Yeah, I think it was tiles. And then one minifigure head, if I remember correctly. But I've sold 5,000 plus parts multiple times over.
Wow.
Probably close to a dozen times. Okay. And almost every single one of those, if not every single one of them, the order has been for 1x1 round tiles or plates for mosaics.
Yeah, I was gonna say, gotta be for
I
mosaics.
parted out at the beginning of this year, like January 1st. I parted out probably like 80 of the art sets, and I think I had 6 of the world map, and all of that went into my inventory at once. It was a giant download of parts. Some people might say it's cheating because it's all huge part count, but for like these tiny little pieces, but they've sold really well for me. And I'm happy I did it.
JJ, that might be something we look into for a special project we've been planning.
Mosaic, yeah, it'd be an interesting idea. Final question for you, Doug, and I think this is an interesting one for you to end with, is what advice would you give to anybody who's trying to or is thinking about opening their own BrickLink store?
It is not going to be a get-rich-quick scheme. I think a lot of people went to opening a BrickLink store during COVID because they could stay home and do it. And I've seen a lot of people selling their stores since then. It is not going to be anything that you're going to make a ton of money of quick. It's a lot of work. I mean, you know, you work a day job that's 8 hours, or you work in a BrickLink store. If you only put 8 hours in a day, you're probably not going to get as much out of it as you might like to see. So you probably be wanting to put more time into it per day. I generally don't put a lot more than that per day, but I also don't take days off. I work 7 days pretty much, unless I have other stuff going on that prevents me from working a full 8 hours. But almost every day I'm doing something down here to try to move forward. I would say try to stay absolutely as organized as possible. Watch as much YouTube video you can, or other places for how to run a BrickLink store. My channel is not that. My channel is generally not a how-to channel. There are a lot of them out there. I'm not really comfortable with like figuring out how to do screen shares and that sort of thing, so I haven't done anything like that. I do mention some things that are kind of useful to know, but generally it's not. There's other channels that are much better suited for that. And watch that, get ideas for things. I had issues. I was delayed 18 months to 2 years in opening my store for issues I had in the house. And for anybody who watched my YouTube channel, I recorded the whole thing. I had water problems in the basement right after I bought the house. And so I had to take care of those. And it was the rainiest season we had in Rochester in like 50 years. And everybody else had water problems. So by the time I got on top of it with a reputable place, I was behind. It took them 16 months to get to me to fix my problems. So yeah, in that time period, I spent a lot of time looking into things, making plans. Like that side to side for the aisles was suggested by somebody to me, and I kind of saw the bonus, and like I resisted, but then I started seeing a couple other people actually using it, and then I could see the benefit, and so I did that. And some of the things I've come up with on my own, you know, but I mean, you just have to and try to future proof your organization, because if you put a piece in a small drawer and you're consolidating, and then you go to put more of it and it doesn't fit in a small drawer, you got to have a place to put it.
Right.
You know, where is it going to go now? You know, so you have to have plans in place for, because pieces are going to continue to move like that as you get more of them if it's not selling.
Yep.
I mean, clearly you'd rather it sells, but it might also be a case of like you just didn't have enough. You know, you might have 40 of a piece, it doesn't fit in a small drawer anymore, but once you get to 50 or 60, somebody goes, oh, I need 55 of that, I'll buy it. So
Yeah.
never.
So I guess piggybacking off of that, just like to kind of tie it all out, what's been your biggest surprise with running your BrickLink store?
I like this question.
Whether it's like a part you were surprised sold really well, or just something you didn't expect to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of things that are all kind of high up there. Brick separators actually sell, which is a surprise.
Really?
And usually when they do sell, somebody buys all of them. And so I don't know. I do know there are a couple of mocks out there that use them for making interesting roofs. I've seen that, but it also could be something where somebody's like, I'm going to have a birthday party that's Lego related. I'm going to give everybody a brick separator. So that could be that. I mean, it could be a number of reasons. I think I've been surprised at the value of some parts. And it's very specific small parts, and they're worth like, you know, $20. I'm like, okay.
Really?
And I've seen some of these, you know, it's like there's a 1x1 round brick in transparent neon orange. Regular brick, it's not an expensive piece. There is one, however, that has a Death Star pattern printed on it. And that piece is worth like $5-6. And so I'm like, oh, I probably don't have it. And I went through all my trans neon orange pieces when I was going to upload them. I'm like, sure enough, I had one. I'm like, oh, wow. Cool. Because it's a faint pattern. It's not real bright. It's like, I think they printed it in maybe red on that trans neon orange, which is, that color isn't very, it doesn't show up, but there it was. And it is sold since. So paying attention to detail is really important.
Wow.
Yeah, weird old parts that have sold. That surprises me. There's a piece that rubber bands used to come on. I've sold that. So
like the cardboard?
No. The cardboard, that's the newer version. There's a plastic piece that used to be made that rubber bands came on. And there's actually 2 pinholes in it for Technic pins. So you can attach it to builds.
I remember those in like the little Bionicle sets. Like those sell.
Those can sell. So I mean, it's way out there. The only thing that I think could sell that isn't listed on BrickLink are sprues. I know people that like, so there's the large 3 frond plant that has a little edge all the way around it when it's new and you have to pop it
Hmm.
out. Well, that piece,
Oh.
I've seen people either cut them or just use it and wrap it around something else as vines.
Oh.
So, I mean, there's some really creative people out there, and we know some of these people. And so,
Yes.
the things they do just always amaze me. And so, yeah, if there was listings for sprues, I bet I could sell them.
Wow.
So, and going through bulk, I found complete sprues, like the coins, the little round coins,
Yep.
10,
Oh
20, 30,
yeah.
40. I found a sprue that had all of them on it still.
Wow.
And there's a listing for that on BrickLink. So I mean, I have a little collection for all my sprues. I haven't decided if I'm selling them or not yet. But if I ever find more, I'm like, yeah, I'll list a couple and keep some or whatever. But then there's listings for that. So I mean, there's a lot of Wild West type stuff going on. There's like a weird things that go on.
The
Wow.
usage people find in some of these like oddball things that a lot of us would consider to be
Yes.
just garbage after done building a set is kind of awesome.
Like the rings that hold like the Infinity Stones. I'm sure someone would make something out of those
Oh,
rings that would hold like the four
yeah.
Infinity Stones.
Well, I'm not even sure, but I mean, I'm picturing in my head. I think a minifigure might be able to hold that ring. Might fit. I don't
You have
know.
to try that after we're done, Cam.
I'm trying to see if I have one close by because like I see my advent calendar, but I don't think I have it close by. I'll have to take a look. I mean, you know I have it.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just yeah. And it's like I have so much backlog in sets to part out and bulk to go through that, like I said, I'm probably never get through it all, but we'll see. I mean, I do have some help that come, uh, people we all know, so it's
Mhm.
it's like it helps. I had somebody here earlier today, as a matter of fact, so it's very much appreciated. So
That is
Well, this
awesome.
that's
is
what I got.
this is this has been extraordinarily informative, I feel like, for not just us, but for others who are going to watch this. Before we wrap up, Doug, would you like to plug your store and your channels real quick?
DOTUBricks.com. I actually have that, and it's got links to my YouTube channel, my BrickLink store, and my Discord channel, which is relatively new. It's not very used. I've been using it for like a year and a half to organize the people that come and help,
Hmm.
but it's been opened up for everybody at this point.
We'll definitely
That's
make sure to
cool.
put those links in the description below.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
will. So with all that being said, we're going to wrap this up now. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to Doug for coming on and taking time out of his very busy schedule, especially with the holidays approaching.
Yes.
Time is of the essence. If you have not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, hit the notification bell so you are notified when all new episodes go live. All new episodes are up Fridays at 2, so you always know when to look for us when we're up. You can follow us on Instagram at the Brick Hour Pod. You can also find me on Instagram at Langster Builds. I've been posting a lot of updates for my Bat Cave over there. There will be more coming
It's
soon.
exciting.
It is very exciting. With that being said, we will see everybody next week. Have a great night and a great week. Happy building.